surprise.
Let's give it up. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I mean, Nick told me that I need to fill 2 hours, which is actually probably the longest I've ever had to speak. And so what I want to do, the reason I'm sitting down is because I don't want to stand and like give a presentation and like a lecture. Like I'd prefer that this is more of like an interactive conversation, like a guided conversation. Because there's two things we could do. I could go through all this, we could chat, or I could chat to you guys and give you all this info. And then we do a Q&A at the end, or you guys can just chat and we can have a conversation throughout the whole thing, ask questions whenever you want. So I would prefer the latter, so feel free to like stop and interject and ask questions or comment, and let's get personal. I feel like I'm probably at my best when I'm like talking about specific stuff, issues that you guys are facing or goals that you guys have, and so I'd love to like just get very specific. So, okay. All right, well, let's hit play. The only reason I have this is just to like kind of keep the whole thing on track, but let's pop in here. So Nick asked me to talk about the 5 things I've learned running a video business, and I mean, I wanted like, I'm very much an entrepreneur at heart, and so there's probably like 50 things I could have thrown in here on like running a business period and being an entrepreneur and building things, but I kind of narrowed it down very specifically to video businesses, 5 things specifically that over the last like 2 years I figured out. And so before we kind of dive into that, I feel like I do need, you said I don't need an introduction. I probably do, maybe a little bit.
A little bit, but everybody knows.
First off, by the way, like formally, I want to say thanks to you, Nick, for like even having me. When we first got here to the hotel, I was in the hotel. You know the elevators here, they're like mirrors, basically. So I hop in with my wife and we're going up, and I like look at her through the reflection, and I'm just looking at her and I'm like, what the hell are we doing in Dubai? How did we end up in Dubai? Because, and I'm only saying this because I think it gives good context and hopefully it helps you guys feel like anyone can do what I've done. I don't think I'm special in any way, but literally 5 years ago, actually 5 years ago yesterday, my wife and I got married. And 5 years ago, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing with my life. I was so confused. I was making videos. I was trying to land clients. And honestly, it was just didn't know the direction I want to go. And fast forward to now, I still have no idea what I'm doing. I think I'm just more confident now. And I've had a lot of successes and failures, you know? And so in just a 5-year time span, so much has changed. If you told me 5 years ago that I would be speaking to you guys in a room in Dubai about what I've done, my accomplishments, my failures, I think you're absolutely insane. So like, hopefully that gives some perspective that like, I don't think I'm special. I think it's crazy that I'm here too. And yeah, so let me kind of give you my background, who I am. I'm 27 years old. I have 2 kids. I'm married, and those are my kids and my wife are like my why. It's like the reason I do absolutely everything. And I think you'll probably see a pattern today as we're going through all of these things is establishing your why, like why you do what you do is so important. As you're going through anything, whether you're starting a video business, a tech company, any kind of entrepreneur, knowing like the reason and your core reason for doing something is so important to establish. We're going to talk about mindset later on. But anyways, 2 kids. I'm married 5 years as of yesterday. And we live in Utah. I've lived in Utah my whole life, except when I lived in Europe for a couple of years. And so I run Studio, which is my production company. We're going to break all these down. Studio is my production company. We have a handful of clients. I have a team of like 10, or let's see, 8. I can't remember. I have like 8 employees at Studio. Landon BTW is kind of like my personal brand influencer type stuff. And now, as of like a few weeks ago, full-time filmmaker. So those are kind of like my bread and butter. Let me give you my timeline, because I think, again, like perspective is everything. And I feel like out of everyone I could be talking to right now, you guys are probably the most confident, I think, in running a video business and being content creators. You're laughing. You'd be surprised though, because I've spoken to big rooms of 50, 100 people, and like everyone's like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. And like no one's very confident, but I feel like you guys, the fact that you're here, that's a big deal. You know, you're taking this so seriously. And so regardless, I do want to like kind of give you some perspective of like where I kind of came from. I don't think I'm special. I think that like my journey is like actually pretty standard, but hopefully it helps you see like, hell, if Landon was there 5 years ago and now he's doing all this, like, you know, what could you do? You could do a million times more than what I've been able to accomplish. So high school, let's start back then. When did you start making videos? What was like your most, like when did you start picking up a camera and making stuff? 2019?
Yeah.
Okay.
Started making broadcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is everyone like kind of in that 2019, 2020 like time period for the most part? When did you start?
2012.
2012. Oh, so you're actually earlier than me.
Yeah.
I feel like I was talking to Nick about this at breakfast. I feel like there's like waves of like videographers. And I feel like you and I, and Nick probably too, we're kind of in like one of the earlier waves, I guess.
2013
Yeah, oh yeah. So you have like the earlier waves.
Oh, yeah.
Filmmaker and like Corridor Digital.
Yeah.
That was kind of my time. That's kind of what got me interested.
Mm-hmm. Did you start in like After Effects too? And like, yeah, same dude, same. Because everyone was doing all these sick VFX and you're like, I want to do that. What's funny is like I knew After Effects way better than I knew Premiere Pro for like the first 4 years of making videos. Because I just wanted to make effects. I had no idea how to like light anything, how to mic somebody up, focal lengths. I didn't even know like exposure or anything. I just wanted to make lightsaber effects in After Effects, you know. And so high school, I mean, that's where I got started really. In high school, one of my buddies, he was the audio visual officer. It's like a student body officer position at our school, and they made all the videos for the high school. And so I learned like kind of the foundation from him. And at the end of, so he was a senior, I was a junior. At the end of the year, we started running, like the juniors would start running to be student body officers for the next year. And so I put my name in the hat and I'm like, yeah, I'll be audiovisual officer. You like campaign, you have your campaign posters and everything. And I had already made a few videos for the high school, and at the time, like no one made videos. I was like one of the only people who actually knew how to like edit. And I ran, and literally no one ran against me. And so I just won by default. And so became a student body officer, the audiovisual officer at my high school. And then actually through that, because I could make videos and I was one of the few, I landed a full ride scholarship to the college that I actually wanted to go to. After high school, who was I talking to about being Mormon in Utah? Was that you? You guys? So in like the Utah community, Mormonism is like, it's not just the religion, it's like the culture too, you know? And so me and like literally all my friends, we went on 2-year service missions for our church. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, the missionaries with the name tags and everything. So I was one of those guys. Like I did that for 2 years. So that's why I lived in France, in Belgium, is because I was a missionary. And so I went on this church service mission for 2 years. And I was the worst missionary like ever. I was so bad at it. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but I think the reason I was so bad at it is because I was selling a product that I didn't care about, that I didn't want to sell. Because like seriously, like to anyone who's religious or whatever, like that's amazing and like do your thing. But like when I was in that, I just didn't care enough. And like you can't convert people and baptize them and whatever if you don't truly believe in that, you know? And so I've always been like so critical of myself. And it's only recently that I'm like, I sucked at being a missionary because I just didn't care about what I was selling. I didn't want to be a part of that. So went on a mission. Let's see. Oh, forgot to fast forward. 2-year church service mission. That was 2015. When I got back, I started a production company. And it's not the production company that I run now. So I started a production company. And it was the biggest shit show ever. So this will make you feel really good about your production company, by the way. When I got back, it was 2017, the end of 2017, and what I did is I talked to my brother, and I talked to 2 of my other friends. So we formed this production company. We each owned 25%. 0 clients. I was like okay at making videos, and it was like the worst possible way to like start a business because like you don't need 4 people just like instantly in that. So my brother was like the person who would set up the LLC and like be like the business guy. My other buddy was like the accountant for our 0 clients that we had. And then my other friend was a videographer, and then I was a videographer. So it was just like, you don't need, like, there's so many moving parts, or probably a lack of moving parts, actually, but plenty of positions, I guess, to fill. And so I don't know. It was like my form of business school, I think. And so we started this production company, 0 clients. I think in total, the company made like $3,000 that year. It was so bad. And
Probably felt like the man.
I was like, hell yeah, dude. No, I would, whenever someone would be like, so what are you up to? I was like, oh yeah, I run a production company. I'm fucking killing it, you know? But no, I was not even close. And so going to college, I worked at an ice skating rink part-time, and I ran a production company part-time, just because, like, when you're in college, you're super poor. And luckily I had the full ride, but so I didn't have to pay tuition or anything. But I went throughout that whole year and just learned a ton. Basically, like I said, it was kind of my business school, my formal training. After that totally flopped, we actually just liquidated the few assets that we had, which was like 2 gimbals and like a camera. And we're like, all right, let's just part ways. And so we finished off the year, and I actually met my wife at the end of my freshman year of college, and I dropped out right away. So I walked away from a full ride scholarship because I'm like, I feel like I'm not going to learn anything at university. There was no film program. The business program seemed like unnecessary for what I wanted to do, and so I just dropped out. My mom hated it. She was like, why are you leaving college? Because we grew up pretty poor, actually, and so like having that was a huge deal. And I told her, I'm like, I feel like I just need to take a chance on myself. Like, because I could always go back. I could defer, and I could come back in a couple of years if I really wanted to. So I took this leap.
What ended up happening with your friends and brother? How did that relationship pan out?
Yeah, so my brother kept going to college. He finished out.
Still your brother, right?
He's still my brother, so we're all good. No, yeah, he finished out college, and actually now he works for me. I just barely hired him. He's my executive assistant.
Oh, he's not the accountant anymore.
No. He could be. We have more clients, so he'd actually have a job to do. But no, he's actually my executive assistant now. I didn't even think about that.
How did that conversation go at the time? Like, are you still friends with all
Yeah.
friends involved, or like what? How did that kind of play?
So the accountant. So my brother was like the business side, and then my other buddy was like the accountant kind of guy.
Shit.
I don't talk to him as much, to be honest. He's done well.
Did it change after that, or like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I mean, he got a good job, and he was doing his thing. And then my other buddy, who was also a videographer, he rents a space from me at my studio in the co-working area. And so, like, overall, relationships are great.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I don't know. Something I say a lot is you need to fail really fast. Like, fail fast, because if you go into starting a business, any kind of business, and you're so worried about it being perfect and having success, like, immediately, you're going to go fucking insane trying to figure it out. But the faster you fail, the faster you learn. And so, I don't know, I wouldn't give anything up for the experience I got in 2017.
Yeah.
But no, so we're
So you liquidate the assets.
totally liquidated it. I scaled down to just me, actually. Went solo freelancing. Oh, there we go. This is lagging quite a bit. I went solo. And so what I learned is that I think growing up, I had this very limited understanding of starting a business. And my understanding of starting a business is you gather all these different people to do certain jobs, and then you kind of wing it and you make it work. But I think the updated, like, 21st century version of starting a business is you learn everything on your own. You go solo, you learn the business. You wear a million different hats, all these different positions, so that you know how the business works, so you understand it. And so that's what I did. We scaled everything down, and then I went solo for 2018. Throughout 2018, I did 100K that first year, just going solo. And it was like, shit, I should have done this the first time.
What do you think changed from when you guys were in a group to you now wearing the hat by yourself? Like, what were some of your first moves at that time?
So I think when you're first getting into entrepreneurship, you start a business, like, at least for me, I had this mentality of like, okay, I don't I don't want to learn how the back end of a business works. Like I shouldn't have to worry about that. I'm the creative person. Or I shouldn't have to worry about the finances. I shouldn't have to worry about setting everything up on the LLC and paying our taxes and doing the sales process and everything. And so I had this very limited, like, that's not my job mentality, which hindered me like in so much because I didn't know what I didn't know. And once I went solo, I forced myself to learn those systems. And because I did that, I could understand it more quickly. I could develop faster. And since then, we'll talk about it, I've been able to then give away all those different hats that I've had to wear previously to other people. And I can impart all this knowledge and wisdom on those people so that they can take that singular job and keep it going and do it better than I could. And so went solo. I did a bunch of weddings, product videos, like luxury real estate videos, and I managed in 2018. Let's see.
How did you win the clients back then?
How did I win them?
Before you guys didn't do anything, or 3K revenue in the whole year.
It was
What
bad.
changed in winning clients?
Just a ton of networking, honestly. Tons of networking, talking to a lot of people, a lot of cold calling, actually, which was painful. And I think that's something that I learned from my mission, actually, is you do so much, yeah, dude. Door knocking, it's, you guys ever just like knocked on a stranger's door? Like you ever done door-to-door sales or anything? It's terrifying. Like you don't know who's gonna open the door. You don't know who's on the other side. And it's just so awkward because you're just standing there, especially when you're a Mormon missionary who doesn't speak French in France. And you knock on a door, you're like, hey, and you're speaking French with this American accent, and you have this oversized white shirt with a big fat tie on, and you're like, hey, bonjour, monsieur. They just want to punch you in the face. You can just feel it. And so, no, I learned a lot there, and I kind of just had to translate that. Because again, on my mission, I wasn't selling a product that I wanted to sell. But now, suddenly, I was so passionate. I was a solo freelancer. I was selling something that I was like, this is awesome. Like, I love the videos I'm making are really cool. I was still learning the ropes of like how videos convert for clients, but I was really passionate about it, and so it just made more sense to pick up the phone and call, and I was just more confident. And so one of the first deals actually that I got when I went solo is real estate was just a really easy market to tap into. I think weddings are probably the easiest, I would think, because you can just talk to people and like you can find people that are getting married and you're like, hey, I'll make a wedding video for you for $500 or whatever, just to get started. I think real estate is probably a close second with how easy it is to get into because there's so many realtors out there, so many real estate offices. You just have to call them up and see what you can work out. And so I probably cold called like 10 to 20 real estate offices a day for like a few weeks, just like trying to get my foot in the door. And I was trying to do luxury real estate because I felt like that's where the money was, And I called this company out of Park City. Were you talking to me about Park City? Yeah. I called this company out of Park City called Engel and Volkers, which is like a super luxury real estate. Like, have you heard of that one? Maybe. They do, yeah. So they sell like one of the houses that I filmed was like the Clintons, like Hillary Clinton, like their summer or winter or whatever snow home in Park City. Post Malone's house, like they do like really, really big, like these are like $15 million homes. And I call them up and it goes straight to, or I call up, it rings, it goes to voicemail. And then 5 minutes later, I get a call back from that same number. And it's like the president over there at Engel and Volkers. And I was like, oh, hey, I was just calling to see if you wanted like any video work. I was a terrible salesman. I was like, yeah, do you want any videos done? And he's like, actually, yeah. And I was like, shit, okay. I'm like, yeah, what do you want me to do for you? He's like, well, we want to make like a commercial, like a promo for Engel and Volkers. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So it started there. I got super lucky that he even like was like, yeah, we have work for you. Like, I guess he didn't know any other videographers. I was the only one. So cold calling actually kind of worked there. And that's how it started. I got my foot in the door with them. And then before I knew it, I was filming, a few $15 million homes a week and just doing that. And that's where a lot of that 100K revenue came from in 2018. And so, yeah, weddings, real estate, some product videos. But I think 2018 was a really formative year because it was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to learn as much as I can on my own, not just how to make cool videos, but how to sell as best I can, how to operate the business. And so, yeah. After that year, that's when I actually got hired at Full-Time Filmmaker. So that was 2019. I don't know why this isn't moving. There we go. All right, 2019, I got hired at Full-Time Filmmaker. And so the way that actually started is, at the time, I was talking to, I think you guys about this maybe.
Just go again. Take it from the top.
Sorry, I just sound like a broken record.
And action.
Thank you. So at the time, this was 2019, Sam Kohler was like the shit. He still is, but he was like really, everyone was like, oh, I want to make travel videos and everything, seamless transitions. And I had already known Parker. Parker actually went to my high school. He was like several years older than me, so we had connected, and then I reconnected with him. And I was like, yo, you guys should make like a seamless transitions course. And he's like, yeah. He's like, why don't you just make it for us? And I'm like, okay, like, sure, why not? So it was like my tryout basically to be on the Full-Time Filmmaker team. And so I made this mini course, and I look back, and you guys seen like anything from Seamless Video Pro? Anyone watched it? What do you think?
It's very good. You know, like you understand,
It's not.
understand how something works.
Yeah.
Often when you don't really know how it is, you think it's awesome, but break it down, you think, oh, okay, oh, I get it.
I think the principles were good, but I look back at that course and I was like, I was not ready to be on camera. I was not as qualified as I thought I was to teach. But I'm so glad I did it. It was me just stepping out of my comfort zone and turning around and talking to the camera and teaching. And it's like, I think out of everything that we've talked about so far, that was probably one of the biggest catalysts in me, like having this huge change in my career, in my life, honestly, in general. And so I went out, I made this course. It was a mini course. So it was like 20 videos. Made this mini course, and then we made a YouTube video to actually like launch this course. And we published that video. And in a week, that video had 500,000 views. So it did really, really well. And in a month, it had 1 million views. And actually, it was like his most viewed video, I think, for like a few months. And it sold a ton of Full-Time Filmmaker courses. And from there, Parker was like, hey, do you want to come over? And I was like, sure. We sat down in his basement, and he's like, I want to give you a job. Like, do you want to be on the Full-Time Filmmaker team? And I was like, yeah, I think I do. And he was like, so what are you making right now with video stuff? And I was like, I'm at 100K. He's like, okay, well, let's match that. So he just matched my salary, but he put me on like a rev share. So at the time, it was like, he put me on 5% of revenue, which at the time was like 100,000 a year. It was probably just under 10K a month. And the 3 months following that, we doubled revenue. So my salary went up to 200K a year, and then we doubled again. So within like 6 to 12 months, I was making $300,000 to $400,000 a year from teaching people how to make videos. And it was like immediately my whole life just changed. And I got into that position, and I feel like I just got too comfortable, you know, like the irony of Full-Time Filmmaker for me at least was that I had, you know, maybe a year of building a production company. I did well, I think, for my first year, but I didn't feel like I was actually qualified to teach people how to become a full-time filmmaker. And so the whole time I had this like sense of imposter syndrome, like making really good money, really happy, and like helping people, but not helping people I felt like to the fullest that I could. And I did that for 2 years, and I just got restless. I just wanted to do my own thing. I'm not really good at like working for other people. Like I actually suck at like having a boss. And by the end, in 2021, I quit Full-Time Filmmaker, and I just started doing my own thing. Yeah.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, go for it.
You said that he matched your salary and put up 5% revenue from the revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about that? Like, does it increase your motivation to work? As you feel like it's your own company, and that motivates you more to push, or?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because you would think it.
And would you do it in your company today for someone else?
Sure, really good questions. You would think that like a rev share or like equity is like, oh, that's enough motivation to keep someone going. What Parker realized and what I realized is that no one is going to care as much about your company as you do. You know, like that's just the fact. And when I was working internally at Full-Time Filmmaker, you know, I got a raise like every few months. Like my percentage went up, revenue went up simultaneously, and so overall I was just making a lot more money. And you would think that would be enough for me to be like, okay, I'm happy here forever. But I just wasn't fulfilled. Something was missing, and I think the biggest reason was because it wasn't my company. It wasn't my product. I was part of it. I was on the team, but it just wasn't mine, you know. And he knew that too. We were in talks of me like being the face of the company while I was there. And he's like, yeah, like we want you to kind of work your way up to like basically being me, being the main face. And as much as I wanted to do that, it just didn't feel like my thing because I was still technically like a salaried employee, and it wasn't the same. And we'll talk about how that feels so much different now. And how that translates, I think, to your company and how I operate too is I don't give out equity to anyone. Like there's no point. Equity is one of those things that it really doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter unless like you sell your company essentially, or you're making crazy amounts of money and you're doing owner's draws and you're distributing that to your board or whatever. And so I don't give out equity ever. I have a business partner who I'll actually like talk about and introduce you guys to. But I think really the best way to do it is as you're going through and you're hiring people, you need to find people that are okay being employees and like just being employees, which is kind of like a hard thing to do. It's especially nowadays, it's really hard to find someone who is totally satisfied just working. They're motivated to have a salary and do their job and really not go for much more than that. But I found that the people, and I've had to fire people. I've had to fire probably 4 people in the last year, unfortunately, because they wanted too much and they weren't self-starters enough. Like they felt entitled to having ownership and being a bigger part of it, but they weren't doing the work to be there. And I think a good analogy that I actually got from Parker is there's a difference between an employee and an owner or someone with rev share or equity or whatever is that an employee does their job and at the end of the day they go home and they don't have to think about work anymore. An owner is constantly thinking about that. And so, you know, in the thick of it, when I was just an employee, technically a full-time filmmaker, if the system went down, if there was back-end issues, I'm like, I'm good. I don't have to worry about that. But Parker was up super late trying to figure that out and constantly doing that. And like that's the biggest difference, I think, is that, you know, an employee just doesn't have to worry about those types of things. And so, yeah, as you're going through hiring people, trying to find people who are comfortable, who are devoted and committed and want to work with you, but understand that there's a difference between someone who is happy being an employee and someone who wants way more. And so
like, what does that conversation look like?
It's
probably not even set in stone yet.
Yeah, you really don't know until you've hired them a lot of the time. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the reality of it. And you really just don't know. And so my philosophy is that you hire slow and you fire fast. Like take your time finding the people, try and figure out if they're the right fit for you, and then bring them on, make them feel motivated, give them incentives to do more and be committed to the business that you are building. And if at any point you feel like they're not contributing, obviously you want to do everything you can to make sure that they're happy and that they are motivated and they feel like they have a future there. But as soon as you can identify if they're no longer going to be a good just employee and you don't want to give them ownership, you don't want them to be more, it's much better to just let them do their thing because they probably have much bigger ambitions than what you can provide for them internally at your company, you know. And that's kind of what Parker saw in me. That's a big reason that I quit. And he like pushed me to like, you should just do your own thing. If you're really this restless, like you should do your own thing. Yeah. It's because I knew internally that I wasn't an employee and he knew that too. Yeah. And so it just made the most sense. So then what? Well, here we go. You're going to love this. You're going to love this next slide because this is what happens. I quit Full-Time Filmmaker. Same year, I was super lost. I was like, the hell am I doing?
At this time, you're not doing client work, right?
No. So when I joined Full-Time Filmmaker, I couldn't he didn't want me to have my own clients,
Yeah.
which is like kind of ironic. Yeah.
That was shit, you know?
Well, it's like you work at a company called Full-Time Filmmaker, and I don't have my own clients. I'm not a full-time filmmaker. I'm a full-time course creator, you know, or a full-time YouTuber, and like it's not the same thing. And so I couldn't actually translate what I was learning in the real world and give that information to my students. So as a result, I didn't have clients throughout Full-Time Filmmaker, and then when I quit, I was starting from square one. I had nothing. And so I quit, and honestly, I was really burnt out making videos, and so I just didn't want to do videos at all. And so did you guys follow me like a few years ago when I started CamWrap, like the camera stickers? Do you remember that? I started like these camera skins, basically, where it's like camouflage, and you like put this vinyl sticker on your camera, and it looks cool. Started that while I was a full-time filmmaker, and then when I quit full-time filmmaker, I brought that back. I built that company back up, and I converted it to just do like MacBook skins because it's like super easy. And I don't know why, I just didn't want to make videos anymore. I wanted to do anything but make videos, and so when I say I was lost, I was just like kind of just shooting in the dark. Like, let me see if I can get this MacBook skin thing to work. And so I just started that company. And I was just treading water for like 6 months, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
So at the time, you still on this rev share deal, or is the rev share cut now that you're gone? You know, what was your personal life like at this time?
Yeah.
You mentioned you met your, I guess now wife.
Yeah.
In the freshman year.
Mhm.
So are you guys married at this point? Like, where?
Yeah, so we got married in 2018.
Yeah.
So the year that I made 100K, we got married.
Okay, you're like, yeah, fuck it, I made 100K.
Yeah, I'm like, I can support a family, right? Yeah. So basically, the timing was good, but also very unfortunate because right after I quit, we had just built a house, and so we were essentially, I was making really good money, but we were essentially house poor.
Yeah.
Because we put everything into that house. And so overnight, my salary went from 300K a year to zero.
Yeah. What does your wife do?
Stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you made 100K, you're like,
Yeah, I was like, babe, you can do whatever you want. I don't even care. Go out with your girlfriends. No. And so, yeah, so like literally overnight, I was at zero.
So how much runway? So it was what, 2 years that you're making like, I don't know, 200 to 400.
Mhm.
And so how much runway do you have at the time when you leave? Like, you know.
Yeah,
like 6 months to-
I probably had a year to figure out what I wanted to do, which is great. I got super lucky that I even had a year at all.
Yeah, but as that 6 month comes, you're starting to sweat a little bit, no?
Yeah, I felt more stress in 2021 than I've ever felt in my entire life.
And this is COVID too, right? So this is like fuck, I'm home.
Yeah, I guess that was COVID. Yeah.
Bored in the house, bored in the house. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, which made like starting an e-com business, that made a lot of sense at the time, and it was fun at times, but it was also very stressful, and I poured a lot of money into that, and so my runway actually got shorter and shorter because I was investing in equipment and stuff. And so I just kind of, I don't know, I was just treading water for so long, I couldn't get traction. And frankly now, knowing what I do now, I feel like I could go back and potentially start Wrapped, the MacBook skins, and actually make it successful with my knowledge. But at the time, I didn't have time to like waste to try and figure that out. And so I actually went back to making videos. I restarted my production company. I named it Studio. I just started it in my basement. And at the same time, I connected with an old friend, or he's actually a client technically at first, who I had worked with before I joined the Full-Time Filmmaker team. So I restarted a production company, and then I kind of reached back out to a lot of my old clients. And I was like, hey, remember how I made videos for you 4 years ago? Like, do you want more videos now?
One of the realtors?
No, it was actually a tech company. And so reached out to him, and when I started doing work for the company that he was working for, and then he actually told me, he's like, by the way, I'm actually leaving that company right now, and I'm starting something else. I'd love to like, you know, pick your brain and potentially collaborate with you and partner up on this thing. And I mean, what it was isn't super important. It was just like this podcast network. He wanted to have like a bunch of shows, kind of like Barstool Sports, if you guys are familiar with that, where they have a bunch of podcasts. He wanted to make something like that. And so we kind of started collaborating on that. And one day we were sitting in my basement. I was making some content for him, podcasting stuff, and we're sitting in my basement. And again, I named my production company Studio. I had it on the wall, this sticker, and we're chatting, and he looks at the Studio sticker. He's like, dude, that's the most badass brand I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, thanks. He's
Did it
like,
look like the sticker in the new spot or what?
wait, what?
Did it look like the sticker that you got on the wall in the new spot?
Yeah, yeah, same exact one. And he's like, why don't we just do that? Like, why don't we just build a production company together? Like, he's a very, I won't give you his background, but he's very savvy with business. He knows a ton of people, very good at networking, and we're like, yeah, we had this meeting where we basically were like, we call it a blue sky thinking session. I don't know if you guys have heard of blue sky thinking, but it's like, it's basically like you sit down and you have a meeting or a conversation with your business partner or with yourself, and you just think, hey, if money was no object, if you had as much time in the world as you needed, like what would you do? And we had this session, and we kind of determined. He was like, what would you do if you had no if money was no object, you could do anything? I was like, honestly, I'd probably open a studio. I'd get a building, and I'd scale the production company from there. And we had this session, and in that same meeting, he calls his real estate guy that he's worked with before, and he's like, hey, do you have any commercial buildings like nearby that might be a good fit? We're trying to do this, this, and this. And the guy's like, actually, yeah. He's like, I have a perfect spot. He's like, do you want me to give you a tour of it? And we're like, sure. He's like, do you want to come today? And we're like, yeah, we'll be there in like 15 minutes. It was 5 minutes away from my house. We go and we tour it. And within 3 days, we signed the contract for the lease.
You're running thin on fucking runway. What are you talking about? You're just like, fuck, I'm gonna sign a lease. But, and even before you go there, right? Like you're at this point now where this old client of yours, now a friend, you're having a conversation. What all of a sudden, after just leaving a partnership or some form of partnership, why do you think it's a good idea to get back into new one? Like, what did you see in this person?
We're going to talk about that a lot, actually, I think, is what I saw in him is that we weren't alike. Like we had very complementary skill sets. And I think to each their own too, but I think a lot of business partnerships start because in the video business world especially, it's like, oh, I'm a videographer. Let's start a company. And it's like, well, okay, like that could totally work. And it's not like it's not like a dead giveaway that the business is going to fail, but you have the exact same skill sets. How do you divvy out who does what? How do you really build that? And because he was just so good at networking, he knew a ton of people in the tech world in Utah specifically. I was great at making videos. It was like the perfect partnership because suddenly we got our foot in the door with so many great clients, and we have so many resources that I didn't have prior to partnering up with him. So it just made a lot of sense. And so, I don't know, it worked out. We went and we saw this building, and I still had money to spend. He had some money that he wanted to put into it, and so together we put $120,000 into renovating this building, and so we got a studio.
And so you renovated a leased building?
Yeah.
Wow, how did that feel?
The lease was pretty cheap, so it didn't feel too bad. And it was a 3-year lease, and it was like, we just had this philosophy that if you build it, they will come, and I think that it was a huge investment that we were making on ourselves.
Were you not nervous though? Like you're just starting out, you don't even really have clients like that, and you're thinking, fuck, I'm gonna sign a lease.
We had a few. We had enough. Like I was at the time. By the time him and I finally got that building, I was probably doing about $15K a month with client work. So actually pretty good. And so I felt pretty comfortable. I'm like, it's a little bit of a stretch, but like again,
now, what do these clients look like at the time? So is it tech companies that you have on retainer? Is it one-off deals? What's the mix look like?
Tech companies. I don't think I had any retainers at the time.
So it was all just one-off deals. It's just like
I had really good relationships where I knew that they would come back pretty much every month, but it wasn't like a fixed retainer, and we'll talk about that too. I definitely recommend that over what I was doing. So, but we managed to turn around $15K a month at the time anyway.
And do you remember off the top of your head like kind of what some of these deals look like? In terms of like, okay, here's the deliverables. Was it standard?
It varied a ton. It was like it was a lot of brand message videos, like a website. Exactly, yeah, like a guy walking around his office and telling you, tons of B-roll. There was like product page videos, It was just a lot of that stuff. And so we made it work.
May I ask you?
Yeah.
you said before that you had the philosophy of if we build it, they'll come. What do you think today about that? Like taking this risk that you say, okay, let's do it and figure it out.
Yeah.
Is it like a necessary risk that you need to do, or it was like, well, it was a bit innocent too in what we are working through?
Yeah, I think it's a huge risk no matter what. But I think as you go throughout business, you realize that you have to take those risks to some degree or another anyway. That was definitely like the biggest possible one we probably could have taken, is just like, let's pour 100K in there. And so I don't know, it worked out for us. I can't say the same to like everyone else, but I mean, generally speaking, if you invest in yourself, you know, I think you're going to find success to some degree or another, you know. And so we got super, super lucky.
How did you feel going from 300K a year to 175?
It's an adjustment, dude. Once you're making, you know, multiple six figures, it's hard to go down from that, you know. It takes a lifestyle change a little bit, you know. And so there was definitely some adjusting to do, but frankly, I think that, I mean, if really, in my opinion, like once you pass like the $100,000 a year mark, like it's just extra, like it's just,
It's not that exponential then? Like,
yeah, like you can save more beyond that, but like you really, in my opinion, you don't really need more than like 100K a year to live, depending on where you live. Like you can do perfectly fine on a salary like that, and anything beyond that is just extra, you know. And so that's kind of my philosophy, is like, yeah, I'm making less, but like it's okay. Like we're surviving, we're doing just fine. And so anyway, so through some trial and error, we've built studio up to do anywhere from 40 to 50K a month, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But that's kind of the ballpark monthly range that I've wanted studio to be at. At the same time, over the last year and a half, I created an app. I got sued for that app. I hired a big team. I reconnected with Parker.
Big team for the app or for
the production team.
What did you get sued for with the app? And what was the app for?
The app was for it was an app called Shot Lists that helps you. I don't know if you've heard of that one. It helps you just create shot lists for your videos and plan out your, yeah. And so made that app, got sued over it. A lot of things have happened in the last year and a half, so I'm just kind of bulldozing through all that. And then in the last 6 months, reconnected with FTF, with Parker. So we were doing a shoot in St. George. We were actually shooting for Hyundai and for another one of our clients called Dazzy. They make like neckties and stuff. And on the way down to that shoot, Parker lives in St. George. And so I called him. I was like, and we forgot a reflector that we needed for this shoot. So I called Parker. I'm like, hey, can we borrow a reflector for this shoot? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. He's like, where are you guys shooting? And I was like, oh, we're shooting here. He's like, oh, can I come? And I was like, yeah, I mean, if you want to come to our boring shoot, sure. And so he came, it was super unlike him. And once he came to that shoot and we started talking, we didn't even talk about anything specific, but I just had this feeling. I was like, I feel like something's going to happen. Like he wants me to take over FTF, or he's trying to retire or something. So I just had this hunch. And then he came up and he was actually on my podcast a couple weeks later, and we did this 2-hour-long podcast. And then after that podcast was over, we talked for another hour and a half, and we basically just mapped out. He's like, so I want to sell Full-Time Filmmaker. Like, I want to get out of it. I made a list of all the people I think could take over Full-Time Filmmaker, and you're at the top of the list. And I'd love to like figure out how to make that work. And we threw around some numbers and what that might look like. And in the meantime, from that point on, basically, he made me acting CEO of Full-Time Filmmaker. I had to make this huge shift to not manage my production company as much, to try and maintain Full-Time Filmmaker and make sure that acquisition went through. And literally in the last couple of weeks, we just finalized the acquisition. So thank you. Yeah, dude, it's crazy. It feels good. So yeah, we just bought it for $4.32 million, which is crazy. And so it's insane. So I mean, like I've talked to my wife about this. I'm like, literally 6 years ago, I couldn't even afford to buy the course. Like I couldn't even buy the course itself. It was $500. I couldn't even afford it. I stole my brother's login, and 6 years later, I just bought the whole company for $4 million. You know?
You told your brother yet, or what?
Yeah, he knows. And so like it's just this crazy, like it was a crazy full circle moment for sure, like freaking out internally, and it's super exciting, but there's a lot of work to do. So this is the timeline. We spent a lot of time on this timeline, which is great. We filled in some good
Do
time.
you have an agenda you want to go through? Or you want us to keep?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Let's go through this, and I think this will be.
You can do a
All
Q&A.
right, Professor. We'll save our questions to that.
No, feel free to comment, ask questions. That was really just my timeline to give you guys some perspective of
Really
like,
interesting, yeah.
yeah. Thanks guys.
Well, what you just said about you think you were lucky, but I heard it a lot. I think a lot of people do. But if I'm listening to you, you're far from lucky. You're just hardworking. But do you feel like you're still lucky?
I think you create your own luck. You know,
Definitely.
I think that. You guys ever listened to the How I Built This podcast? You ever heard of that one? With Guy Raz? The question that Guy Raz asks at the end of every podcast, he interviews these big CEOs. Like he interviewed the original founders of Instagram, the CEO of Spanx, and all these different big companies. And he's like, how much of your success would you attribute to hard work, and how much would you attribute to luck? And everyone says the same thing. They're like, I think it's half and half. You know, you create your own luck. And what's funny is that from the outside looking in, it looks like luck, totally. But when you're working internally and you're building all these things for yourself, you know that it's just working your ass off to make things happen. And even my family, like literally like my brother, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, by the way. And all my brothers and sisters and my mom, like they've told me multiple times, they said I have the Midas touch, like the golden touch. Like everything I touch turns to gold. Like whatever I do, I'm successful at. And I was like, guys, you have no fucking idea how hard. I'm like, you have no idea how many failures I've had to have these few successes. I only tell you guys about the successes, really. And, you know, let them keep thinking that. Like, why not? And so, again, perspective is everything here. And I want you guys to see that. Like, I've had so many failures, but people only talk about the highlights. And so now you guys know I'm just as much of a failure as I am a success. So there you go. So in the last, 6+ years, I actually, again, very specific to starting a video business, I compiled probably just the 5 biggest things I've personally learned as I've been building this, and things that I think you guys have probably been learning and working and implementing, and you might already be doing really, really well already, but 5 of the core things that have personally just helped me scale everything. So again, feel free to ask questions throughout. We can get very specific. If I'm talking about something and you have a question specific to your business, feel free to ask and let's talk through it. Okay, the first thing that I've really come to understand as I've built a video business is that relationships are absolutely everything. Having good relationships with your clients, with your employees, with your talent, even with your vendors, with all these different things is so important. You guys probably heard this. Your network is your net worth, right? You can only build your network up so much if you're in your basement on your computer, huddled up, trying to just make shit happen. Like, it's not a bad way to run a business. Like, you can definitely connect with people and you can build up your business, but I found that when I have been the most secluded from people, I've probably been the most depressed and I've been the least connected. When I'm just on my computer, I'm not talking to anyone. And the more that I've ventured out and proactively talked to people and just been kind and nice and really gone into networking events and conversations trying to purely help people, that's when I've been able to expand my network the most. And I think that the biggest reason that I've found success with my production company is because most of my clients are referrals. Most of my clients are former happy clients or current happy clients that have then referred us to their friends. Because I don't know about you, but in Utah, like, businesses talk to each other. There's a lot of B2B that's going on. And so, like, the relationships are so important. And so having a good network is huge. And when you think about it, like the richest people in the world have the biggest networks ever. Like think about all the people that Elon Musk knows, you know, and it's, if you can expand your network and you can know the right people, like you'll never go broke, or you won't go broke for long, basically, because you know the right people and you know who to talk to and how to make things happen. So like I said, B2B thrives on referrals. It's really hard to get your foot in the door with a company that you want to work with if you don't know somebody internally at that company. It's one of the biggest things that I've been teaching people, at least on the business side of starting a video business, is I got really lucky, like I told you guys, when I was cold calling all those real estate companies. I got super lucky that anyone even like picked up the phone and was like, yeah, we could use some videos. And I found that the business that I've had either have come from, again, happy clients who have then referred me, or from people that I went to high school with or I went to college with who now work internally at a company and can talk me up to their marketing, the CMO or their head of content or whoever that is. And so, I don't know, I feel like so much of business is just being kind and being a good person and genuinely wanting to help people. So what I've done actually a lot of the time when we're going out and we're doing these sales like sprints, basically, there's like we're not actively trying to find new clients. We're kind of at capacity and we're sitting kind of where we want to as far as revenue goes. But when we're doing these sprints to find new clients, the first thing I do is I go on LinkedIn and I try and find people that I went to school with, people in my network that even if I don't even know them that well, I look at all these people in my network on LinkedIn and I just connect with absolutely everyone. And I see what company they're working for. And so I'll look, and even if they're working in like the sales department or customer service or whatever, I'll hit them up and I'll be like, and these are like mid-sized companies, but I'll be like, hey, you know, we went to high school together, like, I don't know if you remember me, or if I know him really well, I'll be like, how's so-and-so doing or whatever. And I'll start talking and be like, how's work? How's business? I actually have a production company right now. We're doing all this. I actually saw a few things that we could do for you guys. I'd love to like chat with you about it. Or can you connect me with your CMO or your head of content? And immediately I found that when you already have a connection internally at a company, there's so much competition right now. There's so many videographers that you have to differentiate yourself a little bit. And if you know somebody, immediately that puts you so much higher up on the list than if you're just cold calling and like, hey, I'll make a video for you.
Figuring out who I can sell this thing, you're first on the list.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's where I found the most success is just talking to people internally at companies and going from there. And all of the clients that we have right now are because of that, actually. Referrals and from just knowing people first. Because again, like you can make the best videos in the world, but if you can't get your foot in the door, it really doesn't matter all that much. After that, with relationships being everything, again, still on that first tip here is give. Like give as much as you possibly can. I think the philosophy that I have with our clients is that we don't hold back. Like in our contracts, and we'll talk about kind of deliverables and these packages that we've created, we have like a set amount of deliverables, but really when we deliver that, we give them like 10 times the amount because we want to keep them as happy as possible. We'll give them raw footage.
Well, you can't get the raw footage.
Yeah, people they're so annoying about that. They're like, no, you can't have the raw footage. And I'm like,
Dude, you're not going to.
I'm like, but why? Like if they're paying you and you want to keep them happy, you want them to keep coming back, give them everything. Like at the end of the day, you want your clients to be using your content as much as possible. And so like, why wouldn't you give them that opportunity? So what we do actually is we don't give them raw footage. We actually color all of the footage first. So at least it has our look on it, and then they can repurpose that and use it however they'd like. And really what that does is it allows us to give them set deliverables, like edited videos that we've made, and then also take individual clips from videos that we've shot for them and put them in a little montage if they'd like to. Use a single clip and post it on social. And so we give them that flexibility because we want them to use our content. Because it's
Advertising for you.
Oh, for sure. Like we give them everything, we make them love us, and we make ourselves irreplaceable. And that's like, I think the biggest differentiator is we make sure that our clients are fully dependent on us.
So run us through what that client journey looks like for
Yeah.
you. and like how you kind of wow them at each touch point.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, so however we land the client, it's usually a referral. It's however we get a sales call scheduled. We get a discovery and then a sales call. We get a discovery call scheduled as quickly as we can. If we can close them on the first call, we absolutely will. Sometimes we can do that. We'll hop on the discovery call. We have a pretty good structure of how we let those calls go. Basically, it starts out with an introduction, figuring out who they are, what they do inside of that company. We talk about ourselves, what we do, and then the next question usually is like, what's the biggest pain point you guys have? It's actually one of these slides. We'll talk about it. What's the biggest pain point you have? We listen to them, then we go and we actually prescribe a solution. We give them one of the packages that we think could actually fulfill on that.
And are these like preset packages, or are you coming up with some custom every time?
We preset packages, and then if they have different needs than what we currently have packages for, we'll actually go and we'll make a custom proposal. We'll send it to them that same day, and we'll schedule a sales call at the same time so that we can hopefully close on them there.
What's the minimum pricing that you tend to work with clients?
Yeah, so our minimum is we only do retainers right now. Not only. We push retainers as much as we get. We tell them that we only do retainers, but we're flexible. If they want like just one to get started, like one package to get started, we'll do that. But we tell them we only do retainers, and it's $5,500 a month. So each client is worth minimum $5,500 a month. Sure. So around that ballpark, and there's a minimum 3-month retainer, so they have to sign on. So every time we close a deal, it's at least $15,000, which is great. Gives us a really good boost.
Could you give an idea of what would be included in something like that?
Well,
Yeah.
that package, baby girl. That's what's under the hood, man.
What's under the hood?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm gonna hold off because I think that's one of my slides here in a bit.
Okay.
I'll talk more in detail because I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
You said ask questions.
I know, and I love it.
He has a podcast. He's interviewing you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh. So, anyways, over delivering is not a bad thing by any means. Again, make yourself irreplaceable. They'll never let you go.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
maintaining relationships with clients when they finish the offer or like the monthly period? Because I think that's where most people lack, and that's when they need to start to find new clients again, because they can't keep the relationship unless it's like ongoing.
For sure.
Yeah.
So the main package that we sell is social media content, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. Which means that, and the way we pitch it is basically like we create a bin of content for you. We're not posting your content for you. We're not coming up with all the captions or all these different things. But we create this bin of content so that whenever you go to post, you never have to think about what are we gonna post today, And because we do it that way, like the turnover rate for social media content is like so fast, especially short form. So like we've made ourselves irreplaceable, but within the first 3 months, if they're posting our content regularly, if they stop, they're not going to have any content to post unless they happen to go find another agency that they're working with, And so we've basically created a shelf life for the content that we make for them so that they consistently need more content to post. And it doesn't mean that we haven't had clients that are like, we have so much, like I think we should take a break. Like that definitely happens. It's kind of the risk you take. But again, I'd rather over deliver and give a client everything than like give them not enough and make them feel like they're not getting a good deal for what they're paying.
So how do you follow up in between? Like the date's over, but you guys aren't trying to get married, right? So like how do you guys hey, like we should go out again, Like how do you?
Yeah, like if they end the contract and then we want to renew like a few months down the road.
Yeah.
We just same conversation.
Like organically, just hey,
Yeah.
what's up, how much content you got left, just checking in.
Yeah, so I just had a conversation with one of our clients. They're called Dime Beauty. They just make skincare products, makeup, different things. And we started a contract. They were actually on a 1-year contract with us at $6,000 a month. So $72,000 client right there for the year. And we just had a call with them last week. And the dilemma we've had with them is that they're like, we have so much social content that like we don't feel like, and we don't have as many products coming out next year that we just don't know what we want you guys to do. And it was a very, very real conversation that we needed to have, because it's like, okay, like we've set ourselves up to do social. And frankly, we're using like 20% of our capabilities with that client. Like we're doing very basic stuff when we could do much more intricate, really beautiful like videos if we really wanted to. We're just doing very basic things right now. And so I told him that. I was like, hey, well, if social isn't like a huge priority for you, then let's reorganize this package. Like, what are you guys not doing that you think could actually be really beneficial for you in 2024? And we kind of determined that testimonials from their clients, like really well-made testimonials, brand message videos where we go out and we interview clients that they've had who use their products, stuff like that. So we basically evolved the package to just be something that actually makes sense for them throughout 2024. And we haven't finalized that deal, but like that's the conversation we're having right now is, okay, you don't need social anymore. What else can we do for you? And we kind of just reorganize, restructure that project. So great question. Yeah, no, it's like, it's not linear. Like at the end of the day, like a client is, they're people and they have concerns and they have needs that are gonna change and stuff. And I think if you're able to evolve with them while still staying in your niche and where you're comfortable, then like just figure out a way to keep that relationship going. All right, the last, is that up? Okay. I think it's the last part of, oh, never mind. Don't burn bridges. Relationships are everything. Don't burn bridges. So to talk about the app that you asked about. So I got sued for this app.
Congrats.
Thank you. It was actually a...
Were you stealing like an artist and you got caught?
No, actually, that's what's frustrating is I didn't do anything wrong, but I still got sued over it. I started this app, and maybe I should go back even further. Okay. A few years ago when I was at Full-Time Filmmaker, I did this job shadow. We were shooting for DJI. They had their new FPV drone coming out, and I had these two guys on Instagram who reached out to me. They're like, hey, can we come, like, you know, tag along on this shoot you're doing? Because they were from out of town. They were in Utah for a couple days, and I was like, sure, like, come tag along, take some photos, get some BTS for us. That sounds great. And one of these kids is a photographer, and he was taking photos, and, you know, he was a nice kid, and we're having a good time. And then after that, we never spoke again. He just sent me the photos, and that was that. Fast forward 2 years, I start talking with one of my other buddies who's an app developer, and we start working on this app called Shot Lists. And we put it all together, and as we're building this app, I'm throwing little things up on my stories. I haven't told anyone what the app was. I'm just telling everyone, hey, I'm building an app. And I'm posting little things on my stories here and there, and he responds to my story, and he was like, oh, looks awesome, man, like, would love to be a beta tester. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll let you know. We launched this app. 2 weeks later, I get a cease and desist from this kid, from a lawyer actually, who's representing the company that he works at. And I like do some research, and I was like, oh, this is, this kid shadowed me on a gig, and now he's like sending me a cease and desist. And I look into it, and apparently he had also created the exact same app with the exact same name at the same time, and it was still in beta. And so he sent me the cease and desist. It was like, yeah, we have a trademark for the name Shot List, and so you can't use that. And like we look into it, and he filed for a trademark, but the trademark hadn't been approved because it takes like 8 months. And I don't think he would have been approved, because the way trademarks work is you can't have a trademark that is descriptive of the product that you're selling. It's why you can't trademark bicycle if you sell bicycles, because it's descriptive. Shot List is descriptive of what the app does. It's a shot list. Like, that's literally what it is. So he applied for this trademark. I haven't looked into it. I can't imagine it's been approved yet either. Sent the cease and desist. I had to get a lawyer and like have them like respond to that cease and desist. They sent a response that the legal office that he's using, his lawyer, they don't even get my response. And so they assume that I want to fight it. And then they served me papers 3 days before Christmas on my doorstep. So a guy knocks on my doors, and it was literally like, you've been served. It was like, yeah. literally like worst Christmas ever, honestly. And I couldn't believe it. Crazy. And I finally hopped on a call with him, and they made up this whole story that they had text message proof that I stole this idea from him, and that it was his idea, and I decided to make it behind his back, and I launched it before him, and like literally like fabricated this entire story. And I was like, what are you talking about? What was that? Yeah, for real, like it was insane. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, I literally haven't talked to you in like 2 years. And the only time I've talked to you is when you asked if you could be a beta tester of my app. Like I had no idea you were making it. So it turned into this whole thing, and we had to, the sucky part is that it was a copyright lawsuit. And I knew that he was a narcissistic liar, and if I kept fighting it, that I would just lose tens of thousands of dollars in court, and it just wouldn't be worth my time. Because we started this app as a passion project, and so we settled it privately, and I had to pay around $5,000 in legal fees, and we had to change our name for our app. We had to change a few things, and it was just like the most insane like process ever. And so I bring that up because he's the perfect example of someone who burns literally every bridge for everyone he's ever met. After that happened, I've talked to multiple people. I was like, hey, do you know this kid? And they're like, dude, I fucking hate that guy. And I was like, okay, that makes me feel better actually a little bit. I'm like, he's not just picking on me. Literally, I haven't had a conversation where someone hasn't said they hate him. So because he's done this so many times. And so
What's his name? I hate too.
he's a photographer. You might have seen his stuff, but anyways, so he's literally the perfect example of someone who burns every bridge he makes, or every bridge he builds working with somebody. He'll quickly turn around and just stab him in the back. And I'm like, don't be that guy. Like, don't be that guy that is so caught up in your own head. Like you can't see other people win. Like you're so just egotistical and narcissistic and whatever. Like just don't be that guy. Burning bridges is literally one of the worst things you can do, not just as a video business owner, but in any sort of business, because even if you do have to part ways with somebody, like I said, I've had to fire 4 people in the last year, and it sucks. Every time it sucks. It sucks having those conversations, but even when I'm having to let somebody go, I do everything I possibly can to make sure that I still care about them. I still want to see them succeed, because I know that down the road, that's going to actually come back to me, and it has.
Something for us to say. We always try to do that too in our company, but that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because usually people don't do that. They're like, okay, you're fired.
I know. It's hard. It's hard to like the lines. I don't know. It's hard to do that because you'd think when you get fired, it's like immediately, like it's done. We can't be friends anymore. Like you can't even talk to each other. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's like no, like it's just not. It's not working right now. But I really want you to succeed, and let me help set you up so that you can succeed. So, yeah. Were you gonna say something? Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'm just trying to put someone down gently right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy, man.
Are we good on the camera? Okay. Sorry, I'm a videographer. Just worried about the camera. Yeah, is the lighting okay?
Your hair and makeup's great.
Thank you. So again, like, don't burn bridges, and I've felt it over the last 6 months more than ever before, because when I left full-time Filmmaker, that was such a hard transition to make, to immediately like just leave, and Parker kind of to quit, but also kind of be pushed out and encouraged to do my own thing. And it didn't end like crazy well, but we didn't like burn that bridge. And because we didn't burn that bridge, it opened up so many amazing doors, And it's like, in my opinion, I think you should do everything you possibly can to, even if you don't like working with somebody, even if you think they're a narcissistic jerk, like just try to maintain a good, respectable relationship, because you never know when that's going to come back. When it's going to benefit you, it's going to benefit them, or it's going to benefit both of you. So with what happened with me leaving full-time Filmmaker and Parker coming back, it would not have happened if we didn't maintain a good, respectable relationship. Okay. Last part here, in relationships are everything. Nice. hell of a
Great. Good to go.
hell of a tripod right there. That's awesome. Last part in relationships being everything is considering a partner. You know, do you guys have business partners? Anyone currently have? I guess you have
My fiance.
your fiance. Anyone
My
else?
brother.
What was that?
My brother.
Okay. Do you have one?
My best friend.
Okay. I think that, and obviously you guys, I think that, you know, when you're starting a video business or you're starting any sort of business, it's like you want to kind of do everything on your own, and you can get really far doing things on your own. And so when I say consider a partner, I'm not saying get a partner, I'm saying consider a partner and don't rush into a partnership. But having a solid business partner can be one of the, you know, best things you can do for your business, one of the biggest catalysts in actually propelling your business forward and scaling. And again, don't rush into it. You want to find the right person, and ideally you want to find someone who is very complimentary of your skill sets, like I was talking about with my current business partner. His name's Connor, actually. So Connor, to give you kind of his backstory, he's actually a stage speaker. Like, he sells from the front of the stage. Literally 2 days ago, he was speaking in front of 5,000 people in Atlanta selling a $1,000 product, and he sold 50 deals from the front of the stage like that. And just crazy, like such an insane skill set. And he has a great network. He's great with tech, great in business. He has that skill set that I don't have. And he was just like the perfect complementary partner that I needed to move things forward. And so when we reconnected, we just played to each other's strengths. He was the guy who was setting up sales calls and coaching me on how to sell properly. And now he was at the front of the stage selling a workshop for creating video content for entrepreneurs, and we'll be upselling them to more and more things. And it's like we've found this insane, like, happy medium where he gets to use his skill sets, I get to use mine, and they both benefit each other to build the same core business, you know? And so again, considering a partner that's actually going to help propel you forward, but don't rush into a partnership just because you feel like you need it. Yeah.
After you guys met?
Yeah, so this is the guy who when I was working with a company a few years ago before Full-Time Filmmaker, he was a sales guy at this company. And so we had collaborated on a couple videos together. And then when I left Full-Time Filmmaker, he was still there and he was leaving to start his own thing. And so we vibed really well. We had a good relationship, and we just were like, yeah, like let's start something together and see where it goes. And so the way we've organized, if we want to get a little bit more granular here, the way we've organized it is with Studio, the production company, I own 75% and he owns 25%, because I do the bulk of the work, you know. And he has his skill sets that help contribute and bring clients there and keep relationships good. And then we just started a new entity that is his mastermind workshop stuff, because he's speaking on stage, he's got the relationships there, he's working hard to sell these deals, and he's building the curriculum for these deals. He owns 75% of that, I own 25% of that.
And that's what he just sold on stage.
And that's what he just sold on stage. And so we've just found this like really great relationship where on the very, very creative stuff, I can majority own, because that's where my skill sets are. And on the things that require him selling and having those skill sets that he has, he majority owns that. But we mutually benefit. When Studio does well, when Full-Time Filmmaker does well, I do well, and so does he. When he sells a ton from stage, I make money. And by doing that, we can actually create residual revenue streams for each of us, because I own 25% of what he's doing, but I don't have to do like hardly anything relative, and I can still make money off of it.
Just one sec, keeping an eye on time, we've got 1 more hour.
1 hour,
You
okay.
can obviously ask questions after as well, like don't hammer it too much.
Yeah, okay, my fault. What I'll do, I'll just note down the questions that I have, and then
Sure.
at the end I'll just...
Yeah, you're good, dude. I mean, like, I don't mind, and we'll crank through this too. Yeah.
We have an hour, so I'll make it quick. Like, when you're looking for a partner,
Yeah.
I always thought you should look for a second you, because I'm motivated and I know what my skills are valuable. But do you think that's the best way to do it, or should you like look for a puzzle piece that you're missing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think you need to proactively be trying to find a business partner, frankly. I think when you find the right person, like, you'll just know, like, this makes sense. Like, this is someone who will actually propel everything we're doing forward and complement what we're doing. So I don't know. I don't think you need to put out a PSA of
No.
looking for a business partner. I know you're not saying that, but I think you'll meet the right people and you'll know pretty quickly if they're a good fit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Number 2 here. The second thing, what I've narrowed down at least, that I've learned starting a video business is investing in yourself. I think it's kind of a no-brainer too, but I do want to break that down. Again, going back to what we've talked about, if you build it, they will come. Huge risk on our part to throw $120K immediately into this building to spend all this money on rent every month. But we just knew it's like, if we want to make this work and we want to grow this company, we need to differentiate ourselves from all the other videographers out there. There was a lack of actual production studios in the area. And the clientele that we wanted to attract, we wanted to impress them. And we felt like if we want to really, really impress them, we need to have a physical space. We need to have a place that they can come to where we can throw our signature look on that. And so it was a huge investment that we've made. And we've made all our money back from that investment in the last year. And it was worth every single penny. And so just having that space for us, in a way, I think, has helped us close deals too. Like it's not just the utility of having the space, it's the fact that we emit a sense of success onto a potential client. Mm-hmm. We hop on a call and we're talking about this product that we can shoot. We're like, oh yeah, we can shoot it on the cyc wall in our space. We can do it here, here, and here in our space. And they're like, oh, you have a physical space. We're like, yeah. And it just creates like this really I don't know, strong sense of these guys know what they're doing. They have a physical space. They're not renting. They're not working out of their basement. Like for us, it just made a lot of sense and it was worth every penny for that investment. So again, if you build it, they will come. And it's just, I think having a space has opened up so many doors for us in the last year and definitely worth every penny. Second part here is in investing in yourself is getting used to discomfort. When I quit full-time Filmmaker, I went from whatever 300K a year to 0 overnight, and it was immediately like this stress that I had never ever felt before in my life. This insane amount of stress, mainly financial, and just like confusion of like, what am I doing? What's the next move? And it sucked in the moment, but looking back on 2021, I'm so glad that I pushed myself to do that, because in a way, I've made myself numb to the discomfort that you get from that level of anxiety, you know. And I think once you get used to not being comfortable, you can do so much more. Like you're not afraid to take some chances. You're not afraid to work hard. You're not worried about your credit score or like how much money you make now versus how much you made a few years ago, you know. And getting used to that discomfort, I think, is huge in your progression as a person and as an entrepreneur. When I left full-time Filmmaker, I literally didn't even tell my wife. It was like, it's like she was pissed actually when I did it, and I feel bad. But at the same time, I know that she wouldn't have understood too. I didn't even understand it at the time, but I'm like, she definitely wouldn't have understood, because she grew up with the mentality of, you know, you go, this is funny, actually, you go to school, you get a job, and you make a salary. When her and I first started dating, actually, I was in the middle of building my video business back in 2018. So I hadn't quite hit that 100K a year mark, but I was on my way to hitting that. And when I met her dad, he was like, so you dropped out of college? And I was like, yeah, I dropped out, like building this video business. He's like, okay. He's like a civil engineer. And so he makes like 100K a year, you know, salaried. He has like some stock options. So it's like a great situation. That's great. But it's funny because he was like really skeptical of what I was doing, and like kind of a dick actually about me dropping out.
It shows where she learned it from that.
Yeah, so she had that mentality, and frankly, I did for a while too. And then I started surrounding myself with people who kind of broke that ceiling for me, you know. But he had that mentality, she did too, and within a year, I was making 3 times as much as he was making, and it was just like, fuck it. So it felt really good to just like, it was amazing, and like I have all the respect for him, like genuinely I do. But it was just one of those things where it's like, all right, like don't let anyone tell you that like you're making the wrong choice. Like you you got to go by your own compass. So anyways, didn't tell her I left full-time filmmaker, and I did, and my income went to zero. And I don't think she would have understood anyways. You know, it's like, if I'm going to make this work, like, I need to push myself like more, like harder than I ever have in my entire life. And I think the best way to do that is to take away the lifeline that I've had for the last 2 years of being comfortable making that salary. And so I did it. So I got used to discomfort in 2021. And now, frankly, like, I am painfully numb to like entrepreneur related stress. Like, literally, like, nothing phases me anymore. We've had months where we're like, shit, we have payroll and all these clients haven't paid. We have some outstanding invoices, but like no one's paid. And I'm like, all right, well, let's send out a few invoices if we can. If we can't, great, I'll cover payroll this month and I'll just reimburse myself, you know. And you have stuff like that just happens over and over. And I've allowed myself to just not like care. Like, that's just part of it. That's entrepreneurship. Everyone wants you to think that it's, once you like find some success, you never have to worry about, you know, the back end and finances or whatever again. It's not true. You're worrying about it all the time, but you just become more numb to it, and you're used to that discomfort. And you know, in the same way, I've allowed myself to not get excited about things either. Like, I don't get my hopes up like I used to anymore. We just had a call with a big restaurant, a Utah-based restaurant that I've gone to for the last 20 years. And it was a sales call, and it went really, really well. And, you know, I think 5 years ago, had I had that same sales call, I would have been like freaking out, telling everyone like, I just had a call with these guys, like, it's looking really good, and I get so excited. And if they decided not to go with us, I would be absolutely heartbroken 5 years ago. But now I've just gotten to the point where it's like, I have these calls and I have these sales calls and I'm talking to all these different people, and I have zero expectations of where it can go. When I'm talking to them, I obviously promise that like we'll do everything we can. Like, we're going to give you a good experience, give you all this content, and so like they feel like they're going to be taken care of. But internally, I'm like, who knows? Let's see where it goes. And so I've just allowed myself to get used to that discomfort, to not be excited about things. And then when it does go through, then you can celebrate. But until then, like, just assume it's not happening. You know, hope for the best, but expect the worst. You know. That's entrepreneurship. Next part here, investing in yourself, is hire. And then in parentheses, I'd say when it's appropriate. So hire when it's appropriate. Hire when it makes sense. My first hire was actually a camera operator. This was back in 2021. Let's see. Yeah, end of 2021. Hired a camera operator. In 2022, I hired an editor. And for me, frankly, the editor was like the biggest, probably the best hire I've made actually to date, is someone who could handle the editing, because as much as I enjoy editing, it wasn't worth my time. Like, it was taking too much time on the back end. I was spending too much time working in the business and not working on the business. This slide right here, you guys ever seen this? Your desire zone, your disinterest zone, desire zone, distraction zone, disinterest zone, and then your drudgery zone. So this is from, there's an author, his name's Michael Hyatt, but he's basically created this compass, the freedom compass, he calls it. And it applies to when you are hiring, when you're scaling, when you're finding people to work alongside of you with your business. In an ideal world, as the owner, the CEO, you are always working in your desire zone, the top one. Your desire zone is things that you're passionate about and you're really proficient in. For me right now, I'm really passionate about closing deals, and I'm really proficient in running a team. And so that's where I try to spend the majority of my time. My drudgery zone currently is producing, so finding talent, finding locations, and I have a producer to do that for me. So that's one of the hires I made, because I don't want to be working in the drudgery zone, the things that I don't like to do. The distraction zone is where you're not proficient, but you are passionate, which is really hard. It's hard to like take that out, because it's like, oh, I'm so passionate about this, but I'm not good at it. So like, I probably shouldn't be the one doing this. And for me, that's talking to clients and setting up meetings and making that happen. It's not that I'm like not super proficient in that. I love doing that, but it's just like I could have somebody handle the invoicing. I could have someone handle the scheduling. I could have someone handle the setting up meetings and whatever with my clients. And so I've hired an office manager to do that for me. And then in the disinterest zone, I'm really proficient at editing, but I'm not passionate about editing. So an editor really fills that gap for me. So hopefully that gives you kind of a good perspective of like, when you're going to hire, ideally, the first person you hire is in that drudgery zone, the things that you're not super proficient in, but you're not passionate about. And you'll notice in the middle of that circle, you have your development zone. Like I said, when you're a solo freelancer, you're going to have all these different hats. You're doing everything in the business. So you need to be proficient and know enough about everything inside of the business, but it doesn't mean you need to do all of those things forever. And so when I say hire when appropriate, I mean hire people that can do things that you really don't want to do, or the things that are taking too much of your time, or your time could be better spent, and try and work as much as you can in that desire zone.
What's in your desire zone these days?
Talking to clients, closing deals, coming to Dubai, speaking here. No, the rush that you get when you close a deal is like the best thing ever, and so that's where I want to be, right?
What's the biggest deal that you closed to date?
That's a good question. Probably not as much as you would think. Like, cause we do retainers, monthly retainers, and so the biggest deal I've probably ever closed is like 120K. But it's over the span of a year, and it's monthly content, you know, and so that feels amazing because it's like sweet.
What's the biggest lifetime value that you've gotten from a client?
These are hard questions. I don't know. Let me think.
Had them for like 2 or 3 years. That could be like 300 or 400K.
Yeah, lifetime. I'm trying to think of a client that we've. Let's see, probably like 200K currently. We have a client that we worked with for the last 2 years, and they're on 8K a month, I think, right now. And so, yeah, so about 200K. So, I mean, yeah, it's a great place to be. Okay, could someone hand me the water, by the way? Thank you. Thanks.
Habibi, best water, all of Dubai.
Don't they fill these up at like the tap or something?
Nah, they must be.
You want that water? You want that designer water?
Oh, the Evian? That's good. This is great. Okay. All right. Moving on to number 3 here. Supplementing your revenue.
What does that mean?
Oh, I'm going to tell you.
Tell me, buddy. I never knew.
I think Nick is a great example of this, of, you know,
That slide.
yeah, of running a production company, having some clients there, but also like going out and you have your masterminds, you have all these different products that you sell to actually supplement your revenue, to create more revenue for yourself. You might even have, I don't know, you might have other investments or businesses that I don't know about, but I think you're a great example of that. Sorry? Okay. For me, here's what I have. So obviously studio, which we've talked about, and I'll break these down all for you guys, by the way. Studio is a production company. The studio does about 40K a month. And by the way, the reason that I haven't grown studio to do more, because I think we could grow it to do a lot more than that if we really wanted to, is we've kind of decided that we want studio to be the vehicle to drive all of these other companies. And if we're so busy gathering new clients for studio and working with them, then suddenly our team doesn't have the bandwidth to focus on full-time filmmaker, YouTube, sponsorship deals, different things that we're doing. And so we've kind of defined how big we want studio to grow, and we're just kind of like sitting here. That's why we're not actively bringing on new clients. Studio does about 40K a month. Full-time filmmaker, education company, does about 200K a month in people enrolling in the course. YouTube, with free content that we're putting out, and this is just AdSense, we'll do anywhere from like 5 to 10K a month, so nothing crazy, but you know, that's overhead in software that we're spending at studio or at full-time filmmaker, so 10K a month. With sponsorship deals, we just signed a deal with MusicBed for next year, Storyblocks, Fiverr, worked with Hyundai, DJI, Bose, like, so we work with a ton of brands, and that does on average around 50K a month between YouTube, my personal like brand with Landon, Bytheway, Landon BTW. After that, shot lists is like basically zero. It's like $1,000 a month because we have people on subscription there, but it's like, it's got huge potential to grow. And now that we have the full-time filmmaker piece, we can find a way to marry those two together and make it a order bump or whatever and get people on subscription from full-time filmmaker. After that, we have digital assets, so fonts, overlays, sound effects, LUTs, presets, etc. On average, that does like $2,500 a month. So nothing crazy, but it's nice to have that cushion, you know? And then consulting, I don't love doing consulting, but I have that as an option in case people want to talk to me, because I genuinely like love talking to people and helping them out and like getting very specific and figuring out what are you struggling with, what are you trying to work through. And so I only do a couple of those maybe a month. They're $250 an hour, and so I'll make like $500 a month, but it's still like something. And if I wanted to, I could ramp that up. And so I have all these different streams, and together in total, that's around 300K a month in revenue and around 100K in overhead every month. And so like we're sitting at a good spot. And frankly, I think there's only potential to grow from here. And we're just getting started with FTF especially. So what do you guys notice about like all of these? Studio, FTF, YouTube, sponsorship?
Same niche, they're connected. I've got a random question.
Yeah.
I've never seen your studio logo. It's like the I, a pause button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just the font that I'm using, but yeah, so Studio, yeah. And when I made it, I actually didn't know it was a pause, and then someone told me. I was like, oh, yeah, it's a pause button. And so, yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
At what stage do you start adding other revenue streams where it doesn't become like a distraction?
Yeah, it's...
For us, for example, like 10, 20K a month, it's probably not a great idea to try start a YouTube channel, for example.
For sure, yeah. I think you need to find a certain level of stability in your core business. I would consider Studio, at least up until now, to be like the core business. Yeah. Again, it's the vehicle that drives all of these other things, because with Studio, I can go out and I can shoot with one of our clients, turn that into a job shadow that I then post on YouTube, or make a course video out of it, or do a sponsor, simultaneously at the same time. And so I think that you need to have your core business at a good point where you're comfortable, and before you can actually go out and make all these different things. I mean, this doesn't totally apply, but you might want to consider having an employee or two to manage more of the day-to-day and the back end so that you can afford to spend time on other things. But yeah, I think that's where a lot of people kind of go wrong, is they get distracted. It's like, oh, there's a new shiny object, and that shiny object is YouTube, and I really want to do that, but like your business is suffering. So like you really need to focus on what's important. When the full-time filmmaker acquisition, like the talks for full-time filmmaker came up, I told my production team, which was about 4 people, and I was like, guys, this like, it sucks to say, but like I'm gonna have to like leave you guys for a few months, and like you're gonna have to run Studio basically. You're gonna have to deal with all of our clients. You're gonna have to talk to them, keep them happy, handle everything. And I gave them everything I could, set them up for success so they could run Studio, so that I could then turn around and learn the ropes of the back end of full-time filmmaker, all the marketing. I could seal the deal there. I'm like, if you guys will just hang with me for like 4 months and just run this for me, I'm gonna close full-time filmmaker, and it's gonna be the biggest thing we've ever done. And so I couldn't have done that had I not had the infrastructure with my team to manage Studio, And so I think in an ideal world, you want to make sure that that's set up, that's comfortable before you go out and you do other things. But I mean, like, you can run a production company on the weekends, make digital assets, and do just fine, But definitely focus
so
on.
Have like the systems in place so that it's kind of working like a little machine, and then
Yeah.
try something in.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the best way to do it. And if you don't have the systems in place, just work overtime, work weekends, and just, remember that your core business is the most important, but still have fun and still make other things that might help you in the long term. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, all these things are in my niche, which I think is really important. I think that there's a lot of things that you guys could do that complements your core business, and all of these things do. And we've just found ourselves in a really good position to have all these things complement the core business, not be competitive with each other. And, you know, at the end of the day, every single business or revenue stream that we have helps people make better content. And that's like the whole message is studio will make better content for our clients. Full-time Filmmaker teaches you how to make content with a camera. YouTube is free, sponsorship deals. Maybe that one's not as much, but it'll show. we'll sell products that will then help you make better content, I guess. Shotless is an app that helps you do that. Digital assets you can use in your editing, and consulting. I'll talk to you one-on-one and help you make better content. So like they all complement each other. After that here, number 4, you need to sell.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Big one.
It was yesterday.
That makes Diego happy, that's like.
Well, good. You'll like this section. You need to sell, and it took me so long to figure this out. And you know, it's a conversation that I have every time I hop on a consulting call. It's like you gotta sell, dude. Like you need to understand how to convert people, how to get leads in, the structure of a sales call to get them to feel important and like you have a solution for their problem, and then how to convert them to actually being a client and then keeping them a client. Because being creative is not enough. Like making good videos, making really pretty videos is great. And I think that's step 1 in growing a video business is making good enough videos. They don't have to be perfect. You have to hit a certain level, I think, to be able to provide the value to your potential clients. But frankly, I think there's a point you hit in your like video journey in learning how to make videos where you don't really need to improve that much in your video creation skills. It's much more valuable, I think, to learn how to sell from there. So instead of worrying about all these new techniques, all these new filming and editing techniques, buying the latest gear, like spend that time and money on selling so that you can actually scale your business.
You heard it from Landon now, guys. Hopefully you listen.
Yeah,
Now this is the place that you get most passionate about.
I know that's the irony is, and I tell that to people all the time, is I got into entrepreneurship as a content creator, holding a camera, just making videos. And I think probably all of us here too, like you get into it because you like making videos. But in the last 2 years, I've evolved into, no, I got into it this way, but now I'm staying in it because I just love the relationships. I love closing deals. And frankly, I like making money. And like, that's really fun to me, you know? And so being creative is a great skill set, and you absolutely need that. But just being creative isn't enough to see success in a video business. You need to sell at the same time. And going back to what we talked about at the beginning of this with my mission is you can't sell something that you don't care about. You know, I think that's where you need to be confident in your video creation skills. You need to be confident in the content that you make, and you need to be passionate about what you do create and how that helps people. And I think you need to be absolutely obsessed and, I don't know, proud of the work that you're making so that you can then turn around and project that onto your potential clients. And so when I was a church service missionary in France and Belgium, you know, knocking doors all day. Like, I don't know, do you guys know like the schedule of a missionary? You ever like looked into that?
It's like Diego's schedule. So is a routine.
Probably, honestly. Dude, it is miserable. You wake up at 6:30 a.m. every day, and like I wake up at 5:30 now, but like yeah, so when you're 18, 19 years old and you have to wake up at 6:30 literally every day, like that's hard. That's hard. You just got out of high school and you're doing that daily. You study for a couple hours and then you go out on the streets and you talk to people and you knock doors, and like you're just forcing yourself to go out and sell. You come back for a quick lunch, you study some more scriptures, whatever, and then you go out again. You have all these like appointments, meetings, you're trying to get people to get baptized. And if you don't, like, imagine doing that, selling something that you just don't believe in and you're not passionate about. It's miserable. Like, and I had that dilemma throughout my whole mission is like, I don't feel it, you know, and you can't force yourself to do that for 2 years. It's exhausting. And so if you're not confident selling your product, then at that point, yeah, maybe you should work on your product. Maybe you should work on your videos so you feel like they're at a point where they're helping people and they're at a high quality level. But once you get to that point, you need to focus on selling.
How do you think you can like focus on your product and be certain that it works if it's not all your own control?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think we've kind of had to make that differentiation with our clients is, yeah, we make the content and it's great content, but we're not placing that content. We're not ad buyers. We're not running the ads and the marketing for that content. And so we'll do everything in our power to make a video that should convert. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean it's going to work every time. But at the end of the day, it's also not on us if it's not being put in front of the right people, you know? And so we have to kind of make that clear to a potential client that we will collaborate with your ad buying team if it's internal or you have another agency that you work with to place ads. But like we don't guarantee results. Like we don't make a video and say, yeah, we guarantee a 4-to-1 ROI on this video, because we have literally no control over that. And that's a big reason why we've shifted our packages to not be, you know, ad based, like ads specifically. It's more just organic, social. And we still don't say, oh, it's going to give you this kind of a conversion. We just make really good stuff that should perform well, and if they post it well and good captions at the right time, and you know the algorithm's working in their advantage, it works. But like you just can't make promises, unfortunately. You know.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about offering like the full marketing agency kind of thing, like management, ads? Because it's something I think about in terms of like supplementing the revenue with like extra streams.
So we have, I don't own any part of this company. We just call them our sister company. Inside of Studio, so Studio is 7,000 square feet, and there's a bunch of offices inside of it. And we actually sublease one of those rooms to an ad buying agency. And so with that ad buying agency, we're on their Studio is on their website, because all they do is they place the ads. They don't make any content. They have to go and find creative every time they're going to place an ad. And what we do is basically they'll hop on a sales call with a potential client, and they'll figure out, do you already have a content creation team? If they don't, they'll refer us to them. We'll hop on a call to then separately sign a contract for content creation. And if we have a client where we're making content and they want to do ads, but they're not currently running ads, we'll then refer them to that ad buying agency. And so it's a good way for us to not have to be like an all-in-one, like production agency ad buying house, because we just don't want to do that. There's just so many variables, and like you can build that, and there's a lot of examples of businesses that do operate that way and work, but we just found it most beneficial to not have to worry about the placement.
Have you arranged for like, because I think that's a really smart partnership to have. Have you created some kind of kickback scenario, or do you just pass on the word for goodwill?
We just goodwill, because it comes back. It's like, again, like they'll refer.
They're definitely going to pick you because it makes sense.
Yeah, and we'll pick them because like they're great. So like there's no kickback. It's just like we help each other out, and that's that, you know.
I think that's a good partnership.
But it doesn't mean that you can't set up a kickback in some way. But for us, we're like, no, like we're constantly on email and saying, hey, like we're introducing our clients to them. Like, hey, this is Jonathan at Empire Media. That's the name of the ad buying agency. They're amazing with ads, just, you know, attaching you to this conversation, just connecting you guys if you'd like to chat about running your guys' ads. So it's really just introductions. And then from there, they'll start a sales call or a discovery call. We'll open a discovery call and we'll go from there. So,
just out of interest, super quick.
Yeah.
Roughly how many referrals or leads a year would you say that this ads agency passes to you?
I mean, we've only been partnered with them for like 6 months, maybe. It's probably one a week currently. Yeah, it's a good relationship. It doesn't mean we close every single one. We probably close, I don't know, like one a month-ish. But it's still good, and only if we want to close them too. Oftentimes we're like, yeah, we would love to, but we just don't have the capacity right now, and we'll turn them away. But we can close probably about 25% at least.
There's still that's 6 new clients, and you do your.
Oh yeah, and they're like, those are the hottest leads you can get too. You know, it's not a low quality lead. Like they're ready to get content, and so it's just a matter of like, can we provide the look and the type of content that you want us to create, and do we want to make that content for you? Like, is that in our realm? You know. So. What was I on? Oh yeah. When you need to sell, here, still on number 4, you need to sell. Here's some of the things that I focus on when it comes to actually selling to our clients. We focus on the branding, we focus on relationships, and we focus on packages. So what I mean by that is with Studio, what we've done is we've created a brand that attracts a certain type of client. So ICP, ideal client profile.
What is ICP?
Ideal client profile. And so it's if you could handpick, the type of client that you want to work with, who would it be? And so when I created Studio, I created a brand that I felt would attract like a mid-tier business. So like a company that makes 10 million a year in revenue minimum, which is really where I like to be, because that's where you have, personally, I think you have the best relationships with the CMO. You don't have to work directly with the owner of the company, so they're not emotionally attached to the work you're doing. And we've just found really good balance in working with those types of clients. And so when I branded Studio, I made it so it would attract to that type of client. I used to operate under Landon, Bytheway Films, LLC, and I was like, I'm not doing that anymore, because when I operate under that, they expect me to be on set with a camera shooting for them. So I branded to Studio because it felt like a bigger agency, a production house, and it didn't require me to be on set. And so that's what made it so seamless when full-time Filmmaker came into play a few months ago, for me to tell the rest of the team, hey guys, I need you to run the production side. It was a no-brainer. No one questioned it. None of our clients questioned it, because they don't expect me to be on every shoot because my name's not on the company, So I like to focus on creating a brand that attracts your ICP. I imagine a lot of you guys are probably already at that point. You've created a brand that you think will be attractive to the people that you actually want to work with. Beyond that, again, going back to relationships and not burning bridges, and just networking and building up these relationships so that people trust you, so they like you, so they feel loved. Because really, personally, I think you can make some pretty subpar videos, but if you have clients joining you on set and you give them a good experience and they're having fun and at least the videos are working, they're going to want to keep working with you. You give them a good experience. And then beyond that, packages. So creating packages that solve problems that your ICP has. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, yes.
You said 10 million a year company. What else is in there in the crosshairs?
What do you mean?
You were mentioning your ICP.
Mm-hmm.
You only gave us the criteria of 10 million.
Oh, yeah, sorry. 10 million a year product-based companies is what we work with. So no service-based companies, just companies that create products. And I like that because it's like, it's broad enough that like we could do a bunch of different things and not get tired of it, but it's niche enough that we're not having to deal with like a heating and air company or whatever, and like a roofing company. Like we just don't want to make those types of videos personally. And so we've kind of just dialed that in. That's where we like to work. All right, the last thing, how am I doing on time? Do I have till noon or?
No, I'm good. Yeah, until noon.
Okay. We'll definitely want to do a Q&A after this.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to go longer with Q&A, we can also move down to the pool.
Okay, great. Yeah, I probably got 10 more minutes on this, so we can all get in the pool and just Q&A.
Yeah.
Why
That's
not?
fun.
That's here.
Sounds great. I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down. All right. Okay, so the last thing here, out of the 5 things that I've learned building a video business, number 5 is, what value do you bring? What value do you bring to your clients specifically? And I think it's so important to be hyper specific on what you do for people. Finding the pain point. I mean, when we were talking about this earlier, when I was doing cold calls, when I got on the phone with that real estate company, it was me asking the question of like, oh, what videos do you want us to do? Can we make for you? Like, what do you need? And it's like, it's just such a bad way of going about it, because you call them and it's the same. It goes the same with people who want to work for me. I get DMs all the time of people who want to work for me, and they're like, hey, anything you need, like, what can I do for you? And I was like, dude, I don't know. Things are going great. Like, you got to tell me what I don't have, what I'm missing, and then fill that gap. Like, why do I need to figure that out for you? Exactly. I mean, like, an analogy here too is, if you imagine you're sick and you go to the doctor and you're paying to be at the doctor's, and then he's like, man, I don't know. What do you think? Like, what do you think's wrong with you? What? You know, it's like you're not going to sit with the doctor and like try and figure out what medication you need. Like that's his fucking job. Like you're not there to like figure it out. You're like, yeah, maybe like ibuprofen. I don't know. What do you think?
You've not been to an NHS doctor in the UK.
Yeah, maybe in the UK. I don't know. But like it's not your job. Like that is his job. And the same exact thing applies with your video business. Like you shouldn't be hopping into a call trying to help them or trying to have them help you figure out what you're supposed to do for them. And so the best thing you can do is first find the pain point that they have. When you hop on a discovery call with a client, again, one of the first questions that I ask is what's your pain point? Like what's the biggest problem you're facing in terms of content? And they'll tell you a variety of things. It's like, oh, we don't have enough to post on social, or our ads team doesn't have enough content to use, or we need a website video to introduce the company, or product videos, whatever that is. And if you can ask them a very simple question, they will tell you exactly what's missing from their content. And from there, you're avoiding the direct question of what videos can we make for you. You're simply just asking like, where are you struggling with content? So it's basically the same question, just phrased so much better. Because once you figure that out, you can then turn around and prescribe a very specific solution to the problems that they're facing. So again, kind of going back to the doctor analogy, like you're a doctor, like you're prescribing a solution. Like they're coming to you for a reason. If they're paying you money, they don't want to have to think about your job. They're paying you so they don't have to think about it at all. And so, let's see. Oh, is that it? Damn. I swear I had something else here. Yeah, finding the pain point. I mean, that's been the biggest thing. To get really like specific here with what we do, the core of our business, the core package that we sell, kind of talking packages now, is we've created these packages that are on average, or sorry, the base package is about $5,500 a month. The highest package is like $12,000 a month. And it's basically just this package where it lists out the most common package we sell is social media, and it'll be a handful of short form video content, like 5 to 10 videos, somewhere in that range. A gallery of photos, usually about 25 or 50, depending on the package. The colored footage, a monthly strategy call with that client. And then we have other kind of parameters in there. And we have these like pre-made packages so that when we hop on a call with a client, we can very quickly figure out, okay, this is the pain point they're facing. And we try to vet these potential clients before we hop on a call, knowing that their pain point is probably social media, which is where we focus, so that we can immediately like prescribe that to them. And if we hop on a call and they have different problems than packages that we have that can solve those problems, what we'll do is we'll just say, okay, great. I'm like, this is an example of what we did for this company. They were struggling with this. They're struggling with social media. You guys are struggling with making individual product videos for your Amazon page or whatever, just to give you an example. So let's go back. I'm going to actually have my team go ahead and make a proposal, a custom package for you guys. I'll send it to you by end of day, and then we'll go from there. And so we have set packages that we've made, and then if we have a client who doesn't quite fit into that mold, we'll modify it just a little bit while still like maintaining the core business.
So do you stay within, because that was interesting, and so let's say they wanted something different and it didn't fit your packages, let's say it turned out they wanted an advert made, it was going to be 30 seconds long, needed multiple locations, actors, a lot of work basically, number of days and all that stuff for shooting. How would you then deal with pricing and taking a project like that on?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of variables because, it's gonna be different. I think with a project like that, you'll probably need to have another meeting because, like, frankly, if a client has like they want to do an advert like that and they have a vision, most of the time I don't want to do that video for them because they have such a clear vision. They want it done a very specific way, and it's like, well, if you want it done a specific way, then I feel like this is going to be kind of a hard relationship because I probably won't be able to fulfill exactly on what you want. But if they're more flexible and it's like they want just a different product than what we typically sell, then yeah, we'll just have another meeting to define that. And it's like, hey, so you want this, this, and this, great. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll make a new proposal. We'll factor in all the overhead that we're going to have with that specific project. And we've kind of defined actually with our packages that on the lowest package that we sell for social media content, we've defined that we'll spend up to $1,000 in actors, locations, and props per month on that client. And so we kind of know, at least on the back end, we don't tell the client that on the front end, but we just know like this is kind of our max. And if the client wants to do a video that's going to require more resources than that, then yeah, we'll make a custom project or a custom package, and then we'll pitch them from there and go through it. So
outside of your in-house expenses, you're operating at roughly 80% profit margin on those deals?
Yeah.
Right. And then what would you generally spend, because obviously you've got a team and stuff, what would your actual profit margin be roughly on that sort of deal?
Yeah, that's a good question. It definitely, it's hard to calculate per project because, on average we do around 40K a month. And I think, again, let's get really real here, because with a video business and with me not on each shoot, like my team has been shooting the whole time I've been here. I'm not on these shoots, but the business is still running. I'm at the point where my overhead is around $25,000 or $30,000 a month with my employees and with other little expenses and stuff like that. And so on the back end, like I'll net 5 to 10K a month, but I also know that that's not my only thing that I'm doing. Like I'm okay taking that hit because it's not just studio. Like I said, studio is the vehicle. And so the way that I've set it up is studio makes enough revenue to be to support itself, and it opens doors and allows me to then take full-time filmmaker and say, hey, we have Music Bed who wants to pay us 15K for a video this month. I'll contract out as full-time filmmaker studio to produce that video for me for $5,000, and I'll make $10,000 on that YouTube video, So it's kind of a weird, I know it doesn't apply to absolutely everyone here, but like I'm okay with that because it works out.
Makes sense.
So now, sorry, bro.
I have a quick question about, you said like your packages go from 2,500 to 12K.
Yeah.
The difference are the amount of deliverables, or is more like if you put like this actor, or if you, I don't know, is it an amount of deliverables, or like
So, okay.
more a production cost because they want that?
Amount of deliverables more than anything. So it was 5,500 to around
Yeah.
10. Okay. I thought no, 55. Are you saying 5,500?
I understood.
Sorry, I just want to clarify.
Okay, because it's a huge.
Yeah, that's a huge jump. Yeah. No, it's really just a difference in deliverables. And so yeah, I mean, like if you look.
The amount of
Mhm.
deliverables is the difference.
Correct. Yeah. And so most clients go for that low to mid-tier option because that applies to most people. $5,500 a month will give them 5 to 10 different short form pieces of content, a gallery of 50 photos. And when you think about it, you could post twice a day with photos and videos, and like your whole month is filled up. And so that's just what most people go for, and we're fine doing that.
Can you just show us what it looks like the package?
A package? Let me see
I
if.
would love to see how they're structured, Like I don't sell the products, but this would be pretty cool to see.
Let me see if I have.
Sorry? We're in a strategy call right now. I'm
Let's
not
see.
your customer, bro. I'll just be kicking your tires, I got you right here.
Let me see. I texted to someone a while ago.
Don't worry, we won't look at your tires.
Hey, don't look, guys. One second. Let's see. I don't know if I don't think I have it saved.
It's okay, man. I'll play.
Landon, have you ever tried, we do it slightly differently, where we try and get the client to drop a number first, and then that's the low tier price. We try and raise that as much as possible. They might say $2,000 is the budget, and we say that's the maximum, and try and get it up to say 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then we present 3 ideas, and that's the first package. 4K, and then it's like 8K, 12K.
I think that's a great way to do it. I personally don't do it that way, but I think the strategy behind that is sound. Like absolutely do that.
Yeah.
I hate personally. I don't like, and you probably not directly asking that question, but I hate asking what's your budget. if I can avoid it. What I do at the end of a sales call, like I won't directly ask like, hey, how much do you want to spend? The way that I approach that at the end of a discovery call is I'm like, okay, let's talk brass tacks. Basically, I'm like, what range do you need to be in?
Do it like a little range.
Yeah, you just have to get an idea, because at the end of the sales call, you might find that you're talking to a client and they're like, oh, our budget's like $1,500. And you're like, okay, well, I don't want to. I'm glad I asked that question, because otherwise I would have made a proposal for you. I would have gone back to you, and then you would have been like, oh, $7,000. We're not doing $7,000.
Yeah.
And so you can ask them, like, what price range do you need to be in? Or alternatively, you can even just tell them, like, straight up. And we're at that point where, like, if we get the client, great, but we don't, like, need the client, because we're just kind of sitting where we want to be revenue-wise. And what I'll often say is, I'm like, so just so you know, like again, talking brass tacks here, like, we'll probably be in the 5 to 7K range for this package. And like, you can just look at their facial expression and immediately know, like, oh, cool, that's good. And like, I'm like, okay, they're cool. Like, they're not gonna have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Or if they're like, okay, and they're like widen their eyes, they're like, all right, this probably isn't a great fit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my approach, is just give them a range. Don't give them an exact price, but give them a pretty solid range, and then you'll distinguish quickly if they're a good client for you.
Generally, when I think the way that we've kind of been taught by Nick, Diego, and Jay, is that if we want 5K, to put the range as 10 to 15, and then usually they say, oh, that's too much, and then they say what is, and then they go half. So you get the 5K, but they might have had like 2K budget initially.
Yeah.
You just push it up.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to do it too. No problem with that at all. I think at the end of the day, like, the person that you're talking to on the other side of the phone is a human being, and they have concerns, and they know their limits and whatever. And so, however you get to that number, that's great. And so I think that's a great strategy. Yes.
Now you mentioned that compensation with business partners might get a little weird. Like, it's pointless taking on an equity deal. It's one of the things that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Now you've got a partner in studio. You mentioned, okay, 10 to 15K a month is kind of like the business's bottom line. How are you distributing that with person, like studio to Landon, studio to Connor? You mentioned it.
Connor.
Are these distributions? Are these dividends? Is it happening? Is it not happening?
Yeah.
When he closes a deal, does he get a commission bonus when you put your hands on a shoot? Is there like some form of, like, just walk us through like how it trickles down?
Well, it's super simple. He has ways that he makes money with his own stuff. He speaks on stage already, and so like Connor, how much? What?
Yeah, no, Connor, what?
Oh,
You know, sorry.
Connor
That's
does
awesome.
How many Connors? That's awesome.
I'm like, there's just one Connor. Sorry.
So
That's what we're doing right now? That's it, okay. Okay.
That is awesome.
Super.
That's great work, man.
So it's actually really simple.
Yeah.
We keep everything in the business currently.
Okay.
Because we're okay doing that. Like,
Yeah.
if I want to, I can do owner's draws, but I don't need to, and I'm comfortable. Like, well, let's just keep it all in, because then we don't have to worry about payroll if we have a slow month or something happens.
Yeah.
Literally last month, our invoicing system stopped working and didn't tell us, our auto invoicing system.
Okay.
And so at the end of the month, none of our invoices went out, and we had 20K in overhead we had to pay out with rent and with payroll.
Okay.
But because we keep things in the business, it's like, oh, okay, it's fine. Like, we're
And so that's your supplemental income doing what it needs to do as well, right?
Yeah.
So where does Landon?
So I make money with my sponsorship deal with Landon BTW, so all the different things. So just with Landon BTW, I can make 10K a month just on influencer type stuff.
Okay.
And then now with full-time filmmaker coming into play, I mean, it's
That's
significantly more,
Understood.
And so again, that's one of the biggest things is like, I don't rake in millions of dollars a year because I don't need to right this second. I'm delaying some of that gratification because I just want to keep everything in the business and build this up. Because long term, I know it's going to be way more valuable to do that. And so to go from making 300K plus a year to zero was really a really hard pill to swallow when I left full-time filmmaker. But like you just have to be okay. Like you can't you can't like judge yourself based on how much money you made 2 years ago versus how much money you make now. Like things are constantly changing, and so I'm comfortable taking less money, knowing that I'm building something that's way bigger than myself. You know, and I think in the next 5 years, we have all these different businesses in place that are going to continue to kill it and just scale exponentially, and we'll be able to cash out when the time's right, and it'll all be worth it. You know.
In the studio building, you rent out room for like co-working space?
Yeah, so at studio, that's a big thing with the space we knew getting into it, because again, it's a huge investment.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do if you're going to make a big investment is how can that investment pay for itself? Like figure out a way to make that happen. With a space, it's actually really simple. It's really obvious to look at a few things. So we looked at people who want to rent the space to use it for production.
Yeah.
And then we looked at a co-working space for creatives, which we thought was a great idea. So currently the co-working space does, I think, about $3,000 a month with all these different content creators in the area who rent a desk, who can use the facility anytime they want. And then we sublease that room to our ad buying agency downstairs for $2,500 a month. And then now with full-time filmmaker coming in, we're actually going to make it, because full-time filmmaker is kind of a cash cow and it can spare a few $1,000 a month. We're going to make full-time filmmaker pay rent to studio too.
Yeah.
So the money just flows between all these businesses.
Is that going to jack up the price of studio with intention probably in some number of years to sell it at a higher value?
Potentially, yeah, but also just like if the money is there for studio for full-time filmmaker and it's not a big deal, then like let's just filter that into studio so we're not stressed about finances on that side of things. And so we just keep all the money within all the businesses, but we kind of filter them.
Yeah.
Ways, so.
What about tax efficiency? Because if you're keeping a lot of this money in, I've learned the mistake of don't take everything out because your business looks like it's on its ass.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, leaving everything in the business, like we're talking about doing now, there's going to be some big tax implications on that where you're paying significantly more.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you deal with that? Are you just sucking it up and like, hey, whatever, it's going to be worth more in the future? Or
yeah,
are you investing to create it out?
It's so hard to avoid. It like I don't know. Like when I was just an employee, full-time filmmaker, I was paying $50,000 a year in taxes.
So he was paying you as a salary like an employee and set a business and allowed to pay you so you could control it.
He was paying me as a 1099, so I had to pay my own taxes.
That's American.
Subcontractor.
Subcontractor,
Yeah.
Freelancer, and Parker himself was paying $750,000 a year in taxes.
Oh,
And it's like you get into different tax brackets. So like I'm not like a tax guy, I'm not CPA, so I was like, I wish I could tell you more, but like you obviously want to expense as much as you can. And so that's a big reason why we're having full-time filmmaker paying rent to studio, or we will once that's like going through next year, is because, well, let's take some money out of full-time filmmaker, let's expense that.
How expensive is it to you?
The rent?
Yeah.
$7,500 a month. So currently we're sitting at, we're probably sitting about $7,500 a month actually between people renting the site, the subleasing, and then the co-working space.
Very even.
So we
just a free place.
Pretty much.
That's it.
It's a really, really good idea for a production company to do that. The creatives want a fun place to work, like, and
it's
cover
great.
the rent.
If you have the capital, just open that up, or you can find someone who wants to invest or be a part of that or whatever, and you're confident in your ability to create a community in a space that people want to come to, that's the way to do it, Because the studio is essentially free.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So what type of data are you paying attention to these days? And like what type of metrics are you tracking? And let's hear your thoughts on that.
The last 4 months has just been full-time filmmaker, the back end of full-time filmmaker with marketing and everything else.
So what does that look like? You know, is that like, okay, how many impressions do we get on this video? How's it performing?
So what we've learned is that it's not rocket science. Like when I looked at the back end of full-time filmmaker and selling courses and generating revenue, like it's really just a leads game. And it's like that with any business, really. It's a leads game. It's like how many leads can you get into your business, qualified leads. And I've learned that more than anything in the last few months is full-time filmmaker, you just need to put out a bunch of free stuff that people get value from, and in exchange they'll give you their email, and then you can retarget them later, you can convert them in an email sequence, whatever. And so really my time is spent thinking of ways we can get qualified leads for like everything we're doing.
Yeah.
And so there's that. we found this interesting correlation that at the a few years ago in 2020 we did about 5 million in sales for full-time filmmaker, and we also simultaneously grew the most on YouTube in that same time frame. And if you look at the graph actually of subscribers gained for full-time filmmaker, the revenue almost follows that exactly.
It's crazy.
Which is so interesting, and we only discovered that a few months ago. We're like, oh, that's why we were killing it. It's because our YouTube videos were great. And then I did a survey last week, and I asked our existing members, I was like, what pushed you to join Full-Time Filmmaker? Was it a YouTube video? Was it an ad? Was it a webinar? Or was it something else? And it was like 40% said it was a YouTube video. By far, like the most voted for. And I was like, interesting. So YouTube video, they might have bought directly. They might have also watched the free training from there, but they remember the YouTube video more than anything.
It's exactly the same for VBA, by the way.
Yeah.
Exactly. the same.
And so
For
it's
the
like,
content on
Yeah,
IP.
the more content we put out,
Yeah.
the better,
Like for me, for
the
example.
better engaging content we have, the more
Cool.
clients we get.
Yeah.
yeah, it helps you know what to focus on, because otherwise you're just like spinning your wheels, and like you'll find success, but you'll have no idea what caused that huge like growth spurt in your business, and you can't replicate it because you don't know what caused it. And so it's really interesting to survey and get those answers from students.
Alright guys, we're gonna wrap it up in this room.
Alright.
We can do a freestyle Q&A if Landon is up for it in the pool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Give it up for Landon.